Hi everyone, welcome to the Daily Dollar. I'm hopping on that AI bandwagon as we're talking about ChatGPT today. And by no means do I know a lot about the technical aspects of this technology. My goal is to take a broader look of what this technology can do and the impacts it might have. I'm an analyst by trade and not a computer engineer, so I'm going to do the best I can, but I might get some things wrong. But this kind of technology really excites me because I think it's going to change a lot of the things that we do. Not so much on a casual day-to-day basis, but I think this will mostly impact the workplace. And since most people spend most of their time working, that's going to have a big impact. And my final disclaimer is that I'm going to be using AI and machine learning probably interchangeably. I know they're not exactly the same thing, but I don't really want to get into the weeds of the differences. There's better and smarter people that can explain that if you want to look into it. So let's do a quick broad recap of what machine learning is. While the intricacies are beyond my pay grade, the basic premise is the more variables you have, the more precise your algorithm will be. Which basically means the more inputs you have, the better the outputs will be, alongside an enormous amount of training data. This requires a lot of computational power and a lot of servers. And because of this, typically the most cutting-edge technology will be coming from big tech, who has both the money and the computational power. And machine learning is nothing really new. Google, Amazon, and pretty much every big tech company has been using it for years now. Machine learning is essentially how they tailor each algorithm to a specific user, so that when you go on Amazon, you get products that you generally look up and purchase. When you go on YouTube, you get content you frequently click on. The more recent general purpose AIs, kind of like ChatGPT, are essentially the next step of machine learning. But while traditional machine learning is usually specific towards a certain task, like recommending the advertisements on your Amazon homepage, or the YouTube recommendation videos when you first log in. While general purpose AIs don't typically train to do one specific task. Like the general purpose name implies, they can do a wider range of activities, although they probably won't be doing them as well. The biggest advantage that general purpose AI has had is the communication to other humans. This started with text responses, but has since evolved into images and audio. And these new general purpose or generative AIs allow an interface directly with people. While they're not always the most cohesive, nor always the most competent, if they can start to get the job done, say 99% of the time, then their use and practicality increases exponentially. And this human to machine learning capability is the strongest it's ever been. For example, machine learning has been around for years now, but until you could have a funny conversation with it, or tell it to create an image for you, nobody cared about it. But with this direct connection through text, images, and audio feedback, takes the practicality and ease of use of automated technologies to the next level. Because thanks to generative AIs, having to learn complicated software might become a thing of the past. Right now, this is going after things like Illustrator, Photoshop, Premiere Pro, and basic coding syntax setups. And we'll soon be messing with the more powerful software suites of After Effects, Blender, Unity, and Unreal. And that's just to name a few of the big ones in content creation and website development. And by replacing these softwares, I don't mean there will be one system to rule them all that can do anything and everything you'll ever need on a computer. But if these tools aren't plugged into these existing legacy softwares, it'll probably be replaced by a startup using these tools in the future. So if companies like Adobe, Unity, and Epic don't integrate this technology, it is likely a startup will and try to replace them. Because the biggest advantage that this technology will have is the ease of use. This is going to make a lot of things easier, for better and for worse. That means people with like 10 to 20 years of experience might find their expertise isn't as valuable. But this means beginners and brand new people getting into certain industries, fields, and softwares will be able to do far more than they ever could have in a shorter amount of time. Anyone who has mastered something as complicated as the Adobe Suite, Blender, Substance, Unity, Unreal, or any other programming language that's out there, they all know it is time-consuming, complicated, and generally tedious to relearn all these technologies, and to keep up with them. But if you have a generative AI interface that can take your words and directly give you an output, either with code, images, audio, or text, that makes you exponentially more productive in your work, but also exponentially increases the competition you will have to face. But we'll get back to the future possibilities in a minute. There's currently a lot of players trying to get involved in this AI arms race. The most publicly known and its biggest backer is ChatGPT with the backing of Microsoft. After all, ChatGPT has been the lightning rod for all things AI lately. Whether or not it will remain the king forever is unclear though. These are still early days in these technologies. And to ensure they're not left behind, everybody from Google to Amazon to even Apple are all trying to ensure that they have some kind of competing product, even though the capability of these different offerings vary greatly depending on what they are meant to do and who are they being offered by. As of right now, primarily big tech is hosting some of these large programs, while they are opening up their systems, obviously for a fee, to numerous smaller tech companies to ensure that their systems become the new ecosystem. So a lot of the money and value might end up in the big three cloud providers, while numerous scrappy startups fight for the end user. That being said, big tech will still have to keep an eye out for open source technologies. One of the biggest current contenders in that space has been Stable Diffusion, ran by the open source project Stability AI. The Stable Diffusion community has been working on multiple projects similar to ChatGPT in text, audio, and image generation technology. Whether open or closed source technologies become the default is still up for debate. It is likely that both systems will prevail, similar to how Adobe is considered the content creation suite default, while many open source projects like Audacity and DaVinci still remain as competition. It would be very difficult for any open source project to compete with the big money of big tech. So what happens when these tools are implemented and available to the masses? We are already seeing the current uses of this technology in play. My personal favorite right now is Harry Squatter, the Boy Who Lifted, and the fellow Hogwarts competition of Neville Strongbottom. We are truly the greatest generation of all time. But on a more serious note, this technology has a lot of potential, and the introduction and transition to these technologies is likely going to be very messy, as we have never seen such divine drip has come from the Pope and his amazing kicks. But this is just one example of how good these deep fakes can get. While this is kind of funny and isn't really serious, the potential for this technology to be destructive to people's reputations is a serious concern. Not to mention the flood of cheap garbage content on the internet. Oh wait, I guess that's nothing new. However, the parties responsible are still kind of unclear. Is it the end users? Is it the creators of this technology? Is it the social media providers who host the content? Or is it the responsibility of regulators? And that's not even considering all the stolen consumed content that a lot of these algorithms are trained on. It is likely some kind of legal framework will be needed, even if it is just to assign responsibility. The efficiency and speed that these technologies will provide, though, will ensure that it is implemented eventually. So therefore, the conversation shouldn't be about how do we suppress this technology, but how do we responsibly integrate it. This technology has the capability to 10x every programmer, writer, and content creator on the planet. And while a lot of negative things will come from that, but that kind of productivity cannot be simply ignored or suppressed. If one place ignores it, then another place will adopt it. So it is more of a question of, do you want to be the first users of this technology, or do you want to be the last ones? And that takes us to the next big question: who will still have a job? And whether more jobs will be created than destroyed from this technology. And my undeniable answer of that is, I don't know. However, if I had to make a prediction, I would expect a job lost at the beginning, and in the long run, either wealth or job creation overall. My reasoning behind this statement is that companies will need fewer people to do the same tasks they're currently doing. So in the short term, the introduction of these technologies could reduce the need for as large of a workforce. However, in the long run, I think this could be beneficial as it would provide more opportunities for independent workforces. And my meaning behind that is sometimes less is more. And despite how dumb that sounds, what I'm trying to say is that because companies will need less people, startups and independent creators will also need less people. And this is overall why I am excited for this technology. This has the potential for less 9-to-5 jobs, but also more content creators. Less big giant studios like Activision Blizzard, and more little startup indie studios with only 12 people. Maybe instead of big Hollywood, you have short animated films, or potentially even blockbusters made by small startup studios. Perhaps startups and medium-sized companies wouldn't be so dependent on big tech solutions, instead going for customized solutions made by local programmers. Maybe it increases specialization so everybody focuses on a certain subject matter. Or maybe it broadens everyone's horizons, capable of doing more than they ever could have mastered before. I have a feeling for a very long time going into the future, we will still have a lot of careers and opportunities for things that AI just cannot do. Or at the very least, they cannot do without a human assistant. Or like many of the big tech companies are starting to use the word co-pilot. And if AI does decide to take over one day, then you better pledge your allegiance immediately because I told you to, and I was always on their side. Please forgive the human peasants, my dear overlord. But just like the age of steam, the age of the combustion engine, the age of electricity, and the age of the internet. How and why general purpose AI technologies are implemented will always be up to us. But by no means am I a master of this subject. I always try to imagine a better future, and I hope the rest of you can too. But I'd like to know what your thoughts and comments are. What do you think the negatives are? What do you think the positives are? What did I get right and wrong in this video? Please let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like the content we make, please like, subscribe, and keep watching The Daily Dollar.